We are here in Tensar, Alabama at Fort Mims State Park. The Fort Mims is really one of the most historical places in the Southeast. And the reason why, and I'm showing you this fort because it was an actual fort. And the significance of this place, and we just walked through the open gate in this place to show you what was inside of Fort Mims, okay? Fort Mims is significant because in 1813, it was an outpost for settlers or colonizers during the Creek Indian War, right? The Creeks had a war between themselves or amongst themselves. It was a civil war, right? And the reason that they had a war, I'll talk about it more in some other videos, but essentially this civil war boiled down to the Creeks who wanted to be a part of the European culture, aka what they would be considered civilized, and the Creeks who wanted to maintain their traditional way of life, which was basically hunting and, not having to wear those European clothes, not using agriculture as a means of making a profit, and basically not owning slaves, okay? These people wanted the traditional ways of life of their ancestors, and the people that they would fight, those people were considered the Redsticks. And the people that they fought were considered the white sticks. They're the ones who wanted to be adopting white culture, European culture, all right? And that's what the situation was. Well, in the midst of that civil war, the Creeks who wanted to maintain their way of life, aka the Redsticks, they had gone down to Spanish Florida to pick up weapons and artillery to engage in this war that they're having, okay? Meanwhile, a group of white citizens ambushed them because the white citizens who were on Indian territory, the Creek territory, they thought that they were going to attack them, okay? And in retaliation to this ambush, which happened at Burnt Corn Creek, we're going to talk about that in another video. The Creeks lost some of their members, and also, believe it or not, some of the people that died on the Redstick Creek side were Maroons, which means freed African slaves who freed themselves and who were warriors. Okay, that is usually left out of the discussion. Is the black people who were enslaved and fought for their own freedom or escaped for their own freedom and were willing to fight against their former slave owners, okay? So once those Creeks lost their lives to some of these white people in a war that didn't have anything to do with them, they wanted some get back. And in order to, their way of getting back was to attack a white settlement. And that was this, Fort Mims. See, Fort Mims was hastily built after that Battle of Burnt Corn Creek, because the Battle of Burnt Corn Creek, the people knew that the Creeks don't play. If you kill a Creek, you should expect that they're going to want some more in kind, okay? That's just how they were. It was an eye for an eye type culture, okay? So they built this fort knowing that there was going to be some level of retaliation for that ambush attack down at Burnt Corn Creek, and they put this thing up, right? And the interesting thing about Fort Mims here is that it was poorly constructed and poorly protected, and the person that ran it, understand, he was an alcoholic, and his name was Major Beasley, all right? And Major Beasley, they said, was a very poor leader. I'll give you an example. This thing housed over 500 people, this little enclave, right? And the thing is, some of those people were slave owners, and they brought the enslaved people with them. One day, a couple of enslaved people were outside of this fort where we just came from, tending the livestock, and they saw some things. These two guys, these two enslaved people, they ran back in this fort and they were like, hey, listen, there are some Indians out there, you know? you better be ready. I mean, they look like they're on the warpath. Well, this Major Barnes, once he got that signal and they went out and sent out their own party, guess what? They came back in and was like, yeah, we don't see any Indians. So as a reward for these two enslaved men for informing them that they were about to be attacked, guess what their reward was? Yeah, one of them was whipped. They put him in the middle of this place, right? Tied him in the middle of the place, tied him up to this pole, and whipped him. And they were planning on whipping the other one the following day. His master or slave owner stepped in and pleaded, please don't beat him. He's a good guy. And they gave him a day. And the following day, they put him to the whipping post, tied him up to the whipping post. And guess what? Yeah, that's when the Native Americans attacked. And boy, did they attack. They came in this place through this gate because this thing was so poorly constructed that they allowed sand to build up at the bottom of it, and they couldn't close the gate. They could not close the gate. So basically, the Native Americans walked right through this thing, and they went on a killing spree. I mean, it was a battle, but guess what? The more heavily armed and more numbers were on the side of the creeks, and those creeks, they kicked butt. I mean, they basically killed all of the militiamen that were guarding this place, killed a lot of the women, killed some kids, okay? But the interesting thing about it is there was a number of enslaved people and mixed race, Mitsa, I believe is how you pronounce it, people. When I say mixed race, mixed between white and Native Americans, right? Those people, they didn't kill them. They basically captured them and led them out of here. I'm going to make the assumption that they did not keep the enslaved people captured. They probably asked them to help them fight. But I just found it to be an interesting juxtaposition that the good slave was whipped for his efforts in trying to slave these people. So that was the Battle of Fort Mims. Fort Mims became a national outcry for the United States of America, right? Because it's, oh man, there's a massacre at Fort Mims. We got to do something to those savages that attacked us. Leaving out the fact that this was in retaliation to the Battle of Burnt Corn Creek, where the Native Americans were attacked. And keep in mind, this was Creek land. This was the Creek Nation, an actual nation according to the United States of America. They're supposed to be just like Canada or Mexico or any other sovereign nation. They're supposed to be treated with respect, and their laws should have been followed. But they didn't do that, and this was their way of retaliating in the midst of their own civil war. I mean, civil war between the Creeks. And also, this was at during the War of 1812. So everybody was fighting everybody at this time. But once this Fort Mims massacre became well known in the United States of America, the United States Army got involved. And they had a battle that culminated in the battle at Horseshoe Bend, right? And Horseshoe Bend is where the United States basically got their retribution against the Redsticks. I'll talk about that in another video, but the main reason that Fort Mims was used as an example for the United States getting involved with this Creek Civil War was because this land that it sits on is valuable land, right? Major General Andrew Jackson, who he eventually became president, he wrote letters to some of his people saying, hey, listen, this will be a golden opportunity for us to get that Indian land that has all that good black dirt, which we can use to raise cotton and other crops to make profits. That was the real reason that the United States military got their retaliation against these people for this massacre here at Fort Mims. All right.